Hello and welcome to Guy Free Working on Me, a woman's journey to self-awareness. This is a great moment in your life, a moment where you have decided to stop taking care of everyone else and to just start to take care of yourself. Stick with me through these podcasts and we are going to take the best rides of our lives. Listen up. Guy Free Working on Me is not meant to be a permanent lifestyle. It is meant to be a time in your life where you stop basing your worth, your happiness, and your self-esteem on having a man at your side. This is going to be an all-out redeciding of who you are, who you want to be, and what you feel inside. Are you ready? Let's go. Hello, ladies. Welcome. I'm Shauna Hoffman. I cannot wait to share with you today's story of reinvention. We've talked in some of the past podcasts about the idea that when we truly go off on our own journey of self-awareness, we find that the identity we have made for ourselves in our past is not who we want to be today. We realize that what we felt identified us was based on everyone else's definition of who we are instead of our own. It's also true that as we grow, age, and put our needs first, whether with a man or single, as a parent with kids at home or an empty nester, we find that there are dreams we have for ourselves that we have chosen to put aside at some time in our life. Or maybe there are dreams that we never even realized we had until that moment that we chose to be Guy Free Working on Me. I am so excited to share with you our guest today, Lavelda Conrad, and her amazing story of reinvention. She is a woman whose story epitomizes the struggles that we go through to find a way to honor ourselves, love ourselves, and take back our lives. Welcome, Lavelda.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here with you, Shauna.
All right. For all my listeners out there, here's just a little bit of disclosure. Lavelda is not only a woman who inspires me beyond belief, but I am lucky enough to consider her my soul sister. So now you know we're going to get down and dirty in today's podcast.
So no formality.
No formalities. Getting all on the table now. All right. I was going to do a full intro of who Lavelda Conrad is, but then I realized again that it would be someone else defining you instead of you. So if you were to give me a wrap-up of Lavelda from, your youth to now in just a few sentences, how would you describe yourself?
Oh, no pressure. Well, let's see. I would say off-white trash.
Nice.
Oh, I went from Hillbilly to Hollywood and now beyond.
And you did beautifully, I might add.
Why, thank you. It's been a long road and there's still more to go.
Isn't that the truth for all of us? All right.
Yes.
So if I was going to ask you, what does the phrase Guy Free Working on Me mean to you? What would you say?
Wow. I would say what it means to me is it epitomizes what the journey we go through as women in particular, people in general, but women in particular. I think we more than likely find ourselves when we're in relationships, we define ourselves by the man we're with or the partner we're with. And I think we fall into that. The society causes us to fall into that the way we're groomed as children. And I think all of us to some degree look at how people view us and take a part of that into ourselves as how we define ourselves and who we are in the world. So Guy Free Working on Me, to me, means that we begin to learn who we are as people separate from everyone else. And that's been my journey with Guy Free Working on Me. That's how it's helped me, is to every day define and know myself, becoming more self-aware in terms of my feelings and my goals and my dreams, separate from any other person in the world, anyone I come in contact with, whether it be my partner, my friends, or strangers that I meet.
Wow, thank you so much for that. That's perfect. You said that we kind of learn how to define ourselves when we're young. And I know you had a pretty strong mom. Can you share a little bit about the story of Zelda and Mother Marion?
Well, Sort of to give you some background on me in terms of my upbringing, I was born and raised in the South, as you know, Shauna, and you met my mom, so I know that's where that question's coming from. My mother was very strong-willed human being, and she knew what she wanted in the world, and she never stopped at anything to get it. And she had a lot of trials in her life and wasn't able to achieve what she had planned on achieving when she was a young woman. So I think my birth was sort of a reinvention of her. And she ended up defining herself through my achievements. Wow. So another way that our lack of self-awareness can come in, we can define ourselves by what our children accomplish. And I think that's detrimental both to a parent and to a child, because neither of you ever know who you really are as people in the world. And so my mother did define herself through my achievements, and hence she was a stage mother and very, very controlling. And a stage mother in the South in those days meant beauty pageants. So that was my background. I was the John Benet Ramsey, if you will, of pageants in the South at that time. So yeah, it was very challenging. I didn't mind it so much, but I knew that the love of my mother wasn't conditional on how I performed. You know what? It was. It was conditional. Yeah. I was loved based on my performance of my duties, if you will. Wow. That just became clear to me.
It's amazing. And therefore, then she defined you by your accomplishments. She defined her love for you by those accomplishments. Do you think you defined yourself by those accomplishments?
To a degree, but I learned early on with my mom, there was always a voice in my head, and I called it at that time, or later when I really thought more about how that saved me, it was the voice of reason that was in my head. And the things that my mother would say to me, there was always an innate sense of self-awareness about me that got me through the worst times in my life. And it was that voice, that inner voice that was the true me telling me, this doesn't sound right. This isn't correct. This isn't true. This isn't who I am. And that's what sustained me.
Yeah, that's self-awareness. That's true self-awareness. That's the ability to hear your own voice over someone else's. And it's very difficult when you're hearing it over a very, very strong-willed parent. So,
and over a very long period of time as well.
All right. So then when you were Miss Teenage America, Miss National. What was your final
Teenager? The title was Miss National Teenager.
And at that moment, when you were up on the stage, you met your future husband.
Well, actually, I was Miss National Teenager for the year of my reign. And it was at the pageant in August of 1978 where I met my future husband. He was the master of ceremonies when I was giving up my crown.
Wow.
That's not scandalous, is it?
Wow. And what happened then?
Oh, wow. This is where it gets really good.
Tell me.
We ran away together, for lack of a better way to put it.
You ran away from your mother.
I did. I did. And it was interesting at that time because my mother was torn between what she had taught me all my life, which was, to be chaste and pure. And then there was this other side of, oh, here's a man who could jumpstart my career and I could become, something else, something more based on his association with me. So I think she was torn between morals and ambition.
And what about you? Where were you on that?
I was trying to escape one situation. Actually, I fell hard for my husband. I was very mature in terms of the world outside, traveling and being around people socially. But emotionally, I was very underdeveloped, even probably for my age. So I wasn't very emotionally mature, if you will. So there was a lot of room to be manipulated by someone who was older. He was 25 years my senior. So I was sort of ripe and groomed to become the partner of a malignant narcissist, if you will.
Yeah. How difficult was it for you then to try to find yourself or identify yourself, identify who Lavelda was?
Well, I always put my feelings and my dreams and my thoughts of being on my own aside. And I've always been an optimistic person, and I've always felt like if I just continued in the situation I was in and moved through it with strength and doing the best I could, that my turn would come when I could acknowledge who I truly was and what my hopes and dreams and desires were, that somehow, getting through this situation would bring me to the other side and I would be fine. And with my mother, I ended up seeing a way out, and I fell in love with a charming, handsome man and considered that to be my knight in shining armor. But in reality, it was more of the same for me. I left one controlling situation and put myself smack dab in the middle of the next. And that one continued on for 31 years. So the voice in my head over that time became smaller and smaller and harder to hear.
How do you think that you actually lost yourself, and when did you hit rock bottom?
Well, my husband was abusive on every level, emotionally, physically, mentally, spiritually, pick an answer. And so as time went on, it became more and more difficult to see a time or see an opportunity or a moment in the future where I would not be under that yoke and not be held by that. And so I really lost myself when I began to realize that all the lifelines that I assumed would be there for me were no longer there. And I felt that there was no possible way that I would ever be able to be free in terms of whether it's guy free or just spiritually and emotionally and mentally free to be myself. I lost hope.
Wow. And that's something that is so difficult for women who have any kind of abuse in their relationship, because it is such a power play and we lose all feelings of any kind of control or power. How did you finally pull yourself out of it? What was your aha moment that you were drowning?
Wow. I think I knew that I was drowning and I gave into it. I turned to substances because I knew I couldn't physically escape, or I felt that I couldn't physically leave because I was threatened with harm. And I felt that there was no other way out. So I took the escape that substances provided for me and went deep into that. And as it turned out, drugs and alcohol offered a form of escape for me for a while. And I was able to maintain based on the ability to escape in my head at certain times. But, as most people know, when you turn to something outside of yourself to answer those questions and to fulfill the needs that we have inside, that's never going to be the answer. It's never going to work. So I made a choice that couldn't sustain me. So as it turned out, the drugs and alcohol became a bigger problem than the one I had faced up to that point. The escape became the prison, if you will. So I think I didn't really pull myself out of it. I thank my 3 daughters. I have 3 beautiful daughters, as you know, Shauna, your Auntie Shauna.
I love them.
Oh, and they are the strongest, brightest, most beautiful lights I can imagine ever being in this world. They're tremendous human beings, and they're so inspirational to me. And they did something that I can't tell you. Well, they saved my life. They actually saved my life. I was dying and I had given into it. I remember thinking to myself, I would rather have died than know what I know now about what I've done. I believed that I was married to one person when in fact I was married to someone entirely different. To me, my whole life had been a lie, and I gave up at that point. And I truly was near death, and my daughters saved me and brought me back from the brink. And I realized I wanted to live and I wanted to have a life. And I began to see what life could be like on my own.
Amazing. Absolutely beautiful. All right, then how did you reinvent yourself from that moment forward? Which is the best part of this story.
Well, yes. It's amazing. I remember being in my car and driving down Pacific Coast Highway and thinking to myself, isn't it amazing? Isn't it magnificent that I can turn this car in any direction and go anywhere I want and no one can tell me no?
Huh.
That was my first inkling that I was actually free.
Wow. Something that so many of us take for granted. And yet there are so many women just like you out there who are completely controlled. So, wow, what a wonderful, enlightening moment.
You're right. It's also a change in perception. And I remember saying to my daughters, because the divorce from their father was very contentious. And it had gone on for about a year and a half. And I remember saying to them, it's time to settle. We're not going to haggle over property and money anymore because my freedom is worth more than that to me. I would live in a tent in order to be free of this and have it behind me. And ironically, I live in a tent now.
I love this part of this story. But clarify for the ladies so that they know you're not homeless on the street.
No, thank goodness I'm not homeless. But I do live in a tent for a good part of my life now. I'm a safari field guide and a trails guide backup in South Africa and Botswana. And I work for a company called Eco Training. And they train most of the safari guides for South Africa or for Southern Africa. They provide safari guides for several countries in Southern Africa.
This story to me is absolutely the best. So you went from Southern girl to
Hollywood wife
to a Hollywood mother to a Hollywood drug addict.
Yes.
To finding yourself and becoming an African trail guide. What does that feel like in the deepest part of your soul to now engage in something that is so truly who you are? And how the hell did you come to this?
Well, it started in a very strange way. I had been divorced from my husband. It was in 2010 when our divorce was finalized. And I went through sort of a renaissance for several years after that. I was happy. I was free. I was pursuing goals. I was a whole person. And then, not to be political at all, but during the election cycle in 2016, I began to experience PTSD. And I realized after the election happened, I fell into a huge depression. And I realized that part of that was because I was triggered by some of the statements and the behavior of the man who became our president. And I realized then that I was looking at someone very similar to my ex-husband and who was my abuser. And it triggered some very deep-seated trauma that came to the surface. So I spent 3 months on my couch trying to figure out how to make myself leave my living room. And so fortunately, I was able to get help, and I've done a lot of trauma resiliency work and EMDR, which is tremendously helpful for alleviating past trauma. And so while I was in the midst of that, I realized that my dream lay in Africa. I don't know how. I follow a lot of wildlife podcasts, wildlife sites on Instagram and Facebook. And the more I looked at life and what was available there, I thought, why haven't I been there? So I thought, I don't want to go on a safari. I want to lead a safari.
I love that. She is a Leo, just so that everybody knows.
Yeah, so that's how that happened.
I love that.
And I'm loving every minute of it.
And I've been looking enough to watch you and watch your journey and see the pictures that you send back from Africa. Let's clarify that it is not the kind of safari. It's a picture taking. It's not a...
Oh, yes.
Explain that just for a second so everybody understands.
We take nothing but photographs and leave nothing but footprints. Eco-training is very involved in conservation education, and it's all about preserving wildlife. In fact, when we're out with students or guests, our goal is to view animals on foot without their knowing we've ever been there. So we try, our goal is to go in, view the animal, and then retreat without disturbing them in any way and leaving the smallest footprint possible. That's what we try to do.
That's absolutely wonderful. And as we all should do in our humanity every day. I love that. All right. That story is so beautiful to me. What now do you want your 3 girls to know about being true to themselves?
Oh, well, I like to think that for my girls, they thought they lost their mother. They were afraid that their mother was disappearing in front of their very eyes. And in a sense, I was, and I did. And I think the best thing I can show them through example is it's never too late to reinvent yourself. It's never too late to pursue your goals and your dreams. And don't do as I say, not as I do. Now do as I do. But I waited. And I would like to tell everyone who listens to your podcast, you may be hearing Shauna's words. You may be realizing that this is something that you need to do for yourself. Don't wait. Don't wait. Take the opportunity to be true to yourself and know yourself and honor the women that you are right now. I waited 31 years and I didn't have to. For me, we say in my 12-step program, we do not regret the past nor wish to shut the door on it because our experiences can help others. And if listening to this and knowing that there's an opportunity out there for women who may feel stuck, just know that it is possible and you can take back your life and you can be true to yourself. But just get out there and do it.
I love it. Thank you so, so much. All right. What's beautiful is you are now engaged to a really wonderful man that I introduced her to just a record.
And I thank you for that.
You're so welcome. He better thank me for that. That's all I can say. How are you going to stay strong? And how are you going to continue to honor yourself for the rest of your journey?
Well, first of all, I picked the right partner.
Good point.
I think, it's become part of the fabric of my being in terms of how I act and react in the world. And that holds true with Jim, my partner. He might not always be happy about this, but he knows exactly what I'm thinking and how I'm feeling because I'm not afraid to speak up, speak my truth, use my voice. And he respects and honors that. So when I say he's the right partner, he's someone who doesn't fight who I am. He celebrates who I am. And that's so important. Good, bad, everything in between. He knows me as a whole human being, warts and all, and still loves me. So.
And you know what? That is a divine love. Lavelda, you have gone through such an amazing journey. And I can't thank you enough for sharing it with our ladies. Women, I hope you have learned something, heard something that may ring true for you, some kind of knowledge, some kind of lesson here, or just been entertained for the last podcast. Either way, that's perfectly fine. And I am so grateful for you for coming on and sharing your journey. And ladies, go out there. Take care of yourself the way Lavelda is taking care of herself now. Honor yourself, love yourself, be good to yourself, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining me today on the Guy Free Podcast. My hope is that you leave this podcast inspired, fired up, and ready to take that next step on the magical journey of self-awareness. And then you come back and join us again. Oh, and if you can do me a quick favor, please leave me a 5-star review over on iTunes. I gain so much from reading the reviews and getting feedback from my listeners. Each week, I'm going to choose one special person who's left me a review to win my book, Guy Free Working on Me. That was the book that started it all. Make sure you add your name to the review, and I'll reach out to you if you're the winner. Thanks again for spending your time with me today. Be sure to visit me on the Guy Free Working on Me Facebook page and on workingonme.com for past episodes and insight into the fabulous journey to you.